Does different levels of life difficulty, life experience, if life is hard or things in life have a lot of pressure, does that take pressure off of golf? In your experience, has it made like, okay, golf is easy compared to life? If that was as hard as that, this can't be that hard.
I mean, it's a really good question. And point would be, I'd say that there are times where life is really easy, and like so easy to go and shoot a good score because you don't care, and that would be in the moments of euphoria. Um, a good example of that, if I remember rightly, Greg Norman was playing in something we used to call the pro celebrity golf here in the UK. It was back in the late 70s and the early 80s. He was playing around Woburn Golf Club, and I think it's men v women or something. It might have been men v women. I think he was playing with Nancy Lopez. Anyway, his wife had given birth. He couldn't be there because he got this commitment to TV, and so he couldn't be there. But he found out overnight that he was a new dad, and the euphoria of that emotion that he went on. I think he shot 29 for 9 holes. I mean, like,
Yeah.
it was like.
Yes.
Nothing matters. Everything's great. Couldn't be any better in the world. And and then flip side of that, you get a tour player who's struggling to reposition his card. That sort of mid-season, which used to happen. I'm not so sure it happens now, but that mid-season sort of rejig, and
Yes.
it's like, right, you've fallen outside of that automatic qualification to go and play next week. And then it's like 6 weeks before playoffs or whatever event it may be, on the DP World, and they can't cope with the pressure. They're one round away, literally one round away from driving taxi for the rest of their life, and they can't cope with it. Others then come into the fall needing 3 good weeks, unless they have a win on the first one. But need 3 good weeks. That's going to be 3 top 10s rather than 3 top 20s, or just got to make the cut. And, I finished third, and you go, where have you been all year?
Yeah.
So it's almost like they can put themselves under, the more pressure they put themselves under, the better they perform, the bigger the event, the more. So there's players that will collapse, just get destroyed, and there are others that are just made, and oftentimes you'll find the guys that win 1 or 2 events in their career have won late in the season when they've needed to.
Back against the wall.
Very rarely do you find that they've won early in the season and they've taken the pressure off.
Sure.
Come to the end of their season and, there's 3 events to play and they happen to pull off a win. And of course that they might be familiar with or comfortable with or whatever, but they pull off the win because they just give themselves that little bit of extra nudge.
Yeah, they laser in on it. Yeah, that's that those two kind of concepts sort of battle each other, where on the one hand, life outside of golf is amazing, or something, God forbid, bad is happening. So life on the golf course seems insignificant and lacks the pressure, and it just doesn't matter. I could, honestly, I could miss this cut and it just doesn't matter because I'm dealing with this outside of golf. So taking the pressure, that would take pressure off of the round, which allows you to free up and play, versus my back is against the wall, and this, I can have no other result but winning or top 3 or whatever. I have to, and any other result is detrimental to my career, and that focuses me, and that amount of pressure is extremely high, but it helps. So sometimes I don't know if there's a question here, but just an observation of sometimes pressure off helps, sometimes pressure on helps. Do you have a thought on that?
Well, I mean, a good example is, last year, DP World, the race for the, I don't know, it was 110, I think it is, position. There's a guy coming up the last who has driven into trouble, and he needs to make 3. I think he needs to make 4. He doesn't know he needs to make 4, and he's par 5, and he's driven into trouble and he's had to wedge it out, short of the green. that's, you want to hit the green in 2 if you've got to make 4. Give yourself a chance with a couple of putts. He goes and holds the wedge shot. And he doesn't hold the wedge shot all year. He holds a wedge shot. Now, he knows he's got to get it close. How close is close? In the hole. Doesn't get any better. And there's another guy then who comes and knocks it on the green in 2. And I'm not saying that, that was last year's DP World, but knocks it on the green in 2, 3 putts. And he's probably 20 feet away and he's got a chance for eagle and, 3 putts. See, Lee Westwood, great example in 2009, 2 putts on the 18th green. He ends up in the playoff. He tries to make the first putt from about 60 feet, doesn't want to leave it short, thinks he's got to make birdie, rolls it 8 foot by, misses the return putt. 2 putts would have got him in the playoff. And would you have backed Lee Westwood in a playoff against Tom Watson, whose aged hips and legs and everything else was gone, against Stuart Sink? You would probably turn around and say that he's going to stand a chance if you're in the playoff. If you're not in the playoff, you don't stand a chance. So you don't know what the playoff would result in. But, sometimes we press when we shouldn't. But we don't know. He's finished an hour before Watson did, and he did what he felt that he should have done. You just don't know.
Yeah.
You can only do... I mean, the thing really is that you can only do your best in the circumstances that you're in. So, if you happen to hold a shot and then finish in the top one, 108, 107, whatever, and you needed to finish 110 and a birdie would have done that, then great. But you've got to just limit what you can get away with, really, and, the damage that you're going to make. But at the same time, if you press for it and you make 6, then you kick yourself if 5 would have done it. So you just never know,
Right.
and the game changes, and it changes in the flip of a coin because, somebody who's in there doubles the last and nobody's expecting him to do that. All of a sudden now he falls out and you would have got in.
Yes.
Had you just made par.
Right.
You can't.
Yeah.
You shouldn't. The key is that you shouldn't be at that point in the season.
Right.
That's what we also, as commentators, coaches, we never want to be in that position at the end of the season. How it happens, why it happens, is actually irrelevant at that point in time if you're in that position.
Yeah.
So it's difficult.
Right. You can't know what other players are going to do, so you have to act in your own dome, in your own bubble. You as if no other players are playing. That is tough, though. You think I've got to make birdie, so is playing aggressive the way to make birdie, or is playing normal the way to make birdie? And either make myself get close to the hole or let the hole get in the way and I happen to make birdie. So it's hard.
It is. I've had it, back in my day as a junior pro, my last junior pro before, I qualified, passed my exams and qualified and went on to be a head pro. I was 2 under par with 3 to play on a course I didn't know, had prepared well and hadn't had a practice round. So I'm coming up 16, and I've got an in-between shot into the green, into the catch it just slightly heavy. It comes up short-sided myself, chip it up 8 feet or whatever, missed it. Now I'm really pressing because I'm thinking 3 under's going to qualify, there's only 2 places available. There's 25 people in the field, and I'm thinking 3 under's going to be the number. So I'm thinking I got to go birdie. I flat out top my tee shot, take double, bogey the last, and failed to qualify by a shot.
Making double and then bogey?
Making bogey, double bogey. So dropped 4 in the last 3, finished 2 over, and one over, played off. At level par, I was 2 under with 3 to play. At level par, I'll finish second, which is fine. I'm in a playoff with 2 other people if I finish 1 over. You're just scratching your head because what you're trying to do is you're trying to put yourself in the place of somewhere else. Because you're thinking, well, I'm just cruising here and, playing really well, rolling the putts nicely, don't know the course. Somebody's got to know the course better than I know it, and you're thinking, you've got to shoot something in the 60s if only 2 people are going to qualify. And lo and behold, I blew that. That was 1993. And I'm not saying that I've had many sleepless nights since, but I can still recall all of those shots down the last 3 holes.
Yes. That's 33 years ago, and you know every single detail. Maybe
Yes.
because of the shock of the emotions of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't want to drive home. You know, it wasn't that far, but I just didn't want to drive home. You know, I was angry, disappointed, upset with myself. You know, I mean, all the emotions are ripping through me at that point in time, except for joy and happiness.
Yeah.
You know, everything else, it's like, well, I don't know why I'm bothering. And this was the last time I'd ever get a chance to do it because of me graduating to, you know, to the next level of golf. And, you know, it was a significant event. The 2 qualifiers were all expenses paid, trip to Spain, playing around one of the best courses in Spain, playing, you know, with just 12 people. So you've got a 1 in 12 chance of winning a tournament, and guaranteed, I think it was about £3,000, you know, for last place, with about £10,000 for first. And you're there going, you know, not life-changing money in grand scheme of things, but at that point in time, that's a good chunk of money to get you started in your head pro position.
Yes. Wow.
You know, so, you know, or, you know, maybe you go Q school, you know, you just don't know, because, you know, the joys of the challenges of playing the game.
Yeah. Your pass video, the posture, alignment, speed, strike video, it's kind of your maybe this is the core philosophy of what you do. This is and I'm curious if that's true, but this is like kind of canonical video, Andy Gorman video of here's how to putt well. 2/3 of it is about posture. Why?
If anybody asks me what my USP is posture, 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 in that order. If you don't get good posture, you cannot make an efficient movement. We get stuck around the fact that, you know, here's a 34 or 35 inch putter, get on with it, because that's all the manufacturers seem to make and put on the shelf. And, you know, if you're a little bit shorter, and you've got to go for a 33, and certainly if you know, wear a skirt and play from the forward tees, you're going with a 33 inch putter. I don't care if, you know, some people say it doesn't matter if you're 6'1" like Lexi, you know, you're 6'1", or, you know, Michelle Wee, they're bent over a putter that's way too short for them, because that's the only thing the manufacturers make for ladies. Now, of course, they're playing with men's equipment ordinarily, and as a consequence, they will probably play with something longer just because they're taller. But therein lies the problem. How much longer? Who's fitting it? So posture's a given, like your shoe size. You know, so you don't get to argue about, I want smaller shoes. If you're a 12, you're a 12. You're going to wear 12s. You know, if you're an 8, don't think about putting the boats on, because, you know, you're going to sink in a hurry, right? There's just no way that we would ever argue with that. And yet we give somebody a putter and say, that's it, based on manufacturing tolerances. You know, it might be within half an inch of whatever it is, and then bend over that if you happen to be 6'4". If you're, you know, 6'4", stand tall and proud to the ball, because you're going to posture well. If you can get your chest moving, you know, ideally, then great. But if not, you know, you're going to struggle with your putting. You know, obviously then, you know, we flip to the other factors, and, you know, the other factors are important, but nowhere near as important as posture.
Hey golfers, I want to pop in real quick and tell you about my favorite golf app by far, Shot Pattern. You could call Shot Pattern a golf GPS app, but I think that would be doing it a disservice. I would define it more as an all-around game improvement app that helps you play smarter golf and doing it as simply as possible. So here's how I use Shot Pattern. I use it 5 different ways. First, I use it for pre-round planning. It has awesome features like arc width to know where you can need to aim. It has scatter plots from your past results based on your the data that you've input, so you can see overlaid onto the actual GPS view of the hole, your kind of dispersion of your past shots. It's super cool. It's when you first press the button and see that, you're like, whoa, this is awesome. And then also it has kind of live strokes gained feature where you put your dot of where you're aiming, and if the ball ends up right there, here's the strokes gained for that shot. And Here's the stroke gain for the hole based on that. So super awesome pre-round planning tool. I also use it for kind of an in-round quick view. So if I'm unsure of how far it is to the run out, how far to carry that bunker, what's around the green, I'll pull my phone out. Usually the phone's sitting in the bag. I'm not a huge technology user during a round of golf, but I'll pull the phone out, check it real quick, super fast, just go over to the hole, put the dot where you need it to be, and you can see exactly what you need really fast. I'll also use it for a post-round review. This is probably my most therapeutic way I use shot pattern. So I'll kick back with my iPad and just kind of go through the holes and input my data, and I'll put the cursor. It has this really cool way you input just right on the GPS view. You put the little cursor, the dot where your shot was hit from, and then you put your target, and then where it ended up, and it's just kind of plod your way along the course, and you get done with the course, and you spit out all these amazing stats and details from your round. It's just awesome. So I'll also use, with those stats in mind, I'll use it for practice planning. So I just used shot pattern from a round yesterday, and I know based on that round that my worst stat by far was my putting. And I am a plus 0.3, and my benchmark is a scratch, just for kind of simplicity purposes, as opposed to a pro or PGA Tour player or whatever. And I lost nearly 4 strokes gained to a scratch player. So I know that is something that I clearly need to work on, and right in theme with this, with the subject of this episode. So that is a huge feature I use shot pattern for, is practice planning. So the next time I'll go practice, I'm definitely doing putting. I was already going to do putting practice after doing this episode, but I'm definitely going to after looking at my shot pattern stats. And I also use it for something that might not apply straight to you, but just shows the value of it. I use it every day in sessions with players. I will have shot pattern up to the side of the Zoom call, and we'll walk through a past round they played, or we'll be planning a future round they're playing, and I will use shot pattern in action during the session as we're talking. So that's just the value I put on it. It's just, I use it every day, all the time. So it's such a good app. And I'm telling you, despite being able to do all of this, it is also the simplest, fastest, smoothest app that I have on my phone. And like I mentioned, there's also an iPad version, and it's even better on that big screen. So you can get a 20% discount on a yearly subscription to Shot Pattern by going to the website shotpattern.app, and then tap Start Free Trial, and then enter the discount code Mental Golf Show. Just Mental Golf Show, and you will get 20% off after the free trial ends. And I promise you, the free trial will end, and it will be a no-brainer for you to keep going, because you will see how great of an app this is. And I will also have a link in the show notes of this podcast to go directly to the page with the discount code already applied. So thank you to Shot Pattern for always being such an awesome supporter of myself and the Mental Golf Show. All right, let's get back into the episode. So get posture right, and everything else flows from that. Length of putter, length of stroke, type of putter, all of that. But posture has to be set first.
Yeah. And then, when folk talk about the style of a putter, there's a massive trend towards mallet putters now. Spider's grabbed a lot of attention, hasn't it? And it's a great product. They give you, I don't know, 200 different variations with dots and lines and, neck shapes. And, there's so many variations around nowadays. But it's a mallet putter. It's, kind of the whole sized head with a flat face at the front, ready for you to go and hit it. But it's how you align a putter. Sometimes you can't align a putter if it's that shape, whereas you can better align it if it's a blade, and, if you've got a release pattern like Tiger's got, then, you can't release a mallet in the same way, because you're going to start it squarer. There still will be an alignment factor on the blade that tends to favor a slightly more open, or in a right-handed instance, a less left aim in the setup. Now, if you've got a release pattern like Tiger's got, then you better start with the face a bit more open. So, don't go for a mallet. if you're looking for an alignment aid that's going to help you to release the club to get it square at impact, because we all know that it's got, well, if we don't, we do now, right? That if it's not square at impact, then you're not going to roll the ball relatively straight towards the target. So putting's not difficult if we know what the factors are. There's still a 4.25-inch hole, which is the smallest target on the golf course. There's still got to be a factoring in of speed based on the distance of the putt. And we've got to start the golf ball on an appropriate line relative to the speed we want to hit it at. If we get those factors into place, speed is taken care of, the start line is taken care of, and as long as we can then process our movement through good chest rotation so that there is no brace of the hands and release of the club, then, as long as everything can keep moving through the ball, then there will be no compromise to the club face.
Should everyone have the same posture?
In principle, very similar. And the reason why I say that is it needs to facilitate movement. So there will be some characteristics that have to be there. So if we look at walking as a characteristic, oftentimes walking is never thought of. Once we get past that initial sort of 12 months of age, we learn how to do it. We have to learn, so it's not first nature, it's second nature. First nature would be breathing, eating and drinking. We don't have to learn to do that. We do it from the moment, that we come out. So the eating element is more liquid to start. It doesn't take long to progress onto something more solid. So we don't have to learn how to use those functions. The breathing is obviously the natural one straight away. If we don't, oh well, okay, we're signed off. But ultimately, once we recognize then second nature, walking, throwing, catching, that we learn to do those, the skills that are based on dexterity or movement. Walking is probably the earliest thing. We can't communicate with our parents at that point. We've got almost zero skills at that point. Yet we can learn how to do it by watching siblings of similar height, or with the encouragement of parents, grandparents, uncles and aunties, all of those that are going to step in there and do the encouraging to start with. But at the age of 12 months, without any cognitive comprehension of what we're doing, we figure out the one thing that's going to stay with us most of our lives, we would have. So there's a posture to that. We stand in a certain position, fairly erect. Now, if there's a physical condition that stops us and we're stooped over, or we get on later in life and we've taken on some ailments as we age, then there's going to be a compromise to the way we walk at the age of 90 versus the age, of 18 months. So, those things, they're adjustments ultimately that life's thrown at us. But if we start at what are we designed to do and how are we designed to do it, we're giving ourselves an instinctive behavioral movement that gives us an opportunity to be able to just keep that movement going. So I'd say yes, but what have you got to work with?
And if you could describe your philosophy on posture, it's obviously much better visually to see your video of it, but describe a good putting posture right now.
Yeah, so an athletic posture would be shoulders in line with toes. So we just tilted slightly forward with our arms hanging from the shoulder with the elbow directly underneath, which positions the golf ball slightly further away. The biggest challenge we've got is that for the last 50 years or so, we've been told we've got to get our eyes over the ball. And it's become a doctrine with no grounding. Why? Because you can see the line from the ball to the hole. Well, I've got the most incredible imagination, but I've never seen a line like that from ball to hole. And that line wouldn't be curved either. It would be straight at the aim. So every putt's straight. So all I'm trying to do is hit the ball in a straight line. If I'm trying to maneuver the golf ball from where I've aimed it in order to the hole, I'm taking the green's job away from the green. I'm hitting the golf ball in a straight line to a reference point right or left of the hole. And that's where I'm hitting it. And letting the ground do the rest of the work then is, what it does. So my primary focus is, can I create the measured stroke to hit it the distance I want to go, relative speed, on the line that's appropriate or what I believe is going to carry the ball over the top of the hole in the ground. So shoulders in line with toes, that doesn't compromise my balance. It switches my brain off from conscious thoughts of trying to retain balance. If I go too far forward, I'm now not consciously, but I'm going too far forward. I'm now out of balance. It may be just gripping in with the toes, create some tension in the lower body, legs, hips, can't move the body now, chest can't move, hands can't get past the chest. And as a consequence of that, the club head will. There's all the speeds in the club head. So the posture allows us to be able to then let the arms and the club just literally swing through with the lumbar spine facilitating its rotation, thoracic spine moving from side to side. So it's rotational, not rocking.
Yes.
Through the shoulders.
Okay, right. You talk a lot about chest movement. I've also heard a lot about kind of like, I guess, lats, the big muscles of your back movement. Is that, do you disagree with kind of that thought?
No,
and it's all chest?
We're just using the thought process slightly differently.
Got it.
And there are times where I'll get a player to engage the lats because they're too rounded. So, using the lats to create that. And it's great that folk are using that reference now because it then aligns with my posture. You can't get eyes over the ball if you're engaging the lats. It pulls you back, pulls the chest up.
Yes, right.
It's a very athletic position.
Right. I was messing with your putting, the posture, your philosophy of posture just earlier today, and doing the kind of setup and letting my hands hang down, and hands straight, fingertips pointing towards my, like the tips of my shoes. And once I got in that position, then I would grab the putter, and kind of wherever the putter ends up at that point, that's where the ball needs to be. Is that how you think of it?
Yeah. And again, presuming that your putter's long enough that allows you to do that without compromising.
Yes.
Because if the putter's too short, you're going to, the beauty about a pair of shoes is there's a fixed size. Your feet go in. Can't go any further. If they don't go in, they're not big enough. Right? Get another pair. If they're too big, they can go in, right? But they're going to slop around. So you just go, right, okay, well, I need a smaller pair of shoes. These will do for now, but actually I could really do with half a size smaller. But with a putter, we just keep bending down until we get our hands on the grip. That means that the putter's too small, but we don't know. We just keep bending over it because we fit onto a putter, not into it. If we got locked into it from where our arms were and we weren't allowed to take our arms any further down, then we'd be gripping halfway up. We got the butt end of the club halfway into the palm. We'd know it was too short, but what we're going to do about it? That's all we've got, and we just bend further forward. Whereas if we get a putter that's more appropriate, and it could be, I've lengthened clubs 5-6 inches. Because you get a guy come in at 6'6", has been compromised with a 35-inch putter, and you might need something closer to, 39, 40 inches, because he may be short to ground with his arm length. We don't, somebody is this wide. I mean, most of us have probably forgotten, but at school, I remember being told that your span, fingertip to fingertip, is equivalent to your height. Well, crikey, I would get a nosebleed at 6'6". I mean, I'm only 5'8". But I'm using a putter that's 35.25 inch long, at 5'8".
Right.
Many golfers over 6 foot, 6'2", 6'3" are coming in 34-inch putters.
Right. Yeah.
Well, they're not coming to me to edify them. They're coming to fix it. There's a problem. Why you've got a problem? Why is it you always pull in the ball when you've got a putter that's too short? Because you can't get the putter past your chest. Can't move your chest because you've locked your lumbar spine. If your lumbar spine hasn't got its appropriate curve, you can't move your chest over the top of it because it's the lumbar spine that does the twisting.
Yeah.
The chest is the on-block movement that goes over the top of the lumbar spine.
Right.
I'm moving here. I'm sat with my feet down like you are, and it's my lumbar spine is doing the twisting, not my thoracic.
Right.
Now, if I take it one step further, that's my maximum range, reasonably flexible. It's about 20 degrees. Now, if I push it further, this is thoracic stretch. That's continued thoracic stretch, which will start to ache if I keep it there. So,
yeah.
And likewise here, we've got range, but ultimately this movement here is lumbar rotation or lumbar flexion, if you want to, in terms of twisting.
Yes.
So that's the tolerance that I've got, which is quite a bit, and allow me to swing the arms and the club a reasonable distance, and I can roll the ball, 40, 50 feet without having to apply any wristing in there to
Yeah.
assist the speed there, because I can get the putter moving 2 feet comfortably.
Yeah. So then, something I've struggled with over my golf career is I've always thought um, it's me. If I'm putting bad, it's me, not the putter. Or I've since added in a couple putters that I've tried um, to putt better with, but for the longest time, probably for 15 to 20 years of my golf career, I used the same exact putter. And it was if I was putting bad, it was never the putter's fault, it was me. And a lot of other players, almost every other player that I knew, if they were putting bad, it was the putter's fault, not them, and they would change putters. And we know the serial putter purchaser, and but the 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 difficulty that I have is with your, let's say, okay, you've got your posture right and you've got the length of the putter right. At that point, does the putter matter? I know you talked about the style of head as far as release pattern, but does can if someone has those things right, posture and length of putter, can they putt well with anything?
Pretty much.
Okay.
So there are changes, and the release pattern's based on how you start the putter. So if you start with the putter 2.5 degrees open, you've got to close it, which is, a 10-foot putt, 5 inches right of the target. So, you've got to understand your release pattern. So, Tiger's a great example of that. He'll have putter, putt lab data that I've seen in the past, and, they all vary. So the stuff that I saw 15 years ago, it was 2.6 to the right, 0.9 close to impact, and I think it was 1.2 or something into act. When Tiger missed a putt, you heard him sort of talk about release it, Tiger. And he self-talk that through to the next. I remember him walking off the 14th green at Augusta one time, across to the back of 15, and he release it, Tiger. Really agitated because he pushed it. Well, he's pushed it because his setup's really extreme, and it was possibly a little bit left to right, putting across the green from the left as you play it. So maybe probably sloping a little bit from the back of the green to the front. And so a little bit of left to right, just didn't release it back on the start line. Well, that agitated him. Did it cost him the tournament? Can't remember, but I can remember him shouting it to himself about release this putter. But if you start, with a putter that's really about a cup right of the intended start line, then you've got to release it. And he's, would he be pulling putts onto line? Yeah, probably. It's my observations, Open Championships that I've been around has been, he's aiming right and he's pulling it on line.
Wow.
But he can calibrate that because he's 98% consistent at what he does.
Yes. Right.
So it doesn't matter. And in fact, actually, the caveat to that would be, the backstat statement up would be, Charlie a couple of years ago said of his dad, when dad tells me to aim right edge, I have to aim at the center. Because Tiger sees a putt coming in off the right-hand side of the hole.
Yeah.
Whether it's left to right or right to left, his visualization is that the ball is moving this way into the hole because he works with the slightly open right aim bias and releases the putt.
Yeah.
He doesn't play golf like that. So it's not a movement pattern per se that is locked in from 300 yards out down to the shortest putt. But it's the way he rolls the golf ball, and as a consequence to that, rolls it extremely well. And I'm sure we'd have that one back on 14 that I just mentioned, but ultimately he didn't miss many putts that he needed to.
So then with a player like that, if they showed up to you, would you say you need to set it up square? You're 2 degrees open. You need to set it up square.
In principle, you would want to, but with a player like that, who's always done it that way around, no, you wouldn't touch it. Would you teach it? No. Would you change it? Absolutely not.
Right.
And you would enhance the awareness maybe of the player. They probably already know. I mean, it depends on how long that data is. If they come to you at the age of 15, now you've got a chance to work with them. Come to you at the age of 35, having won 12 majors, you'd be a very peculiar coach if you then took the player and rebuilt everything.
Yes.
Or tried to,
Yeah.
we look at players that, in their early 30s, late 20s, early 30s, like Faldo, throw the book at me, we'll change everything at that point in time because it's not working. I can't win majors with this swing that's not working. So Ledbetter took on the task and did everything necessary to build a swing that we know was as robotic and bulletproof as a swing has ever been, and over a 9-year period put 6 majors in the bag. Did he let a few go? Yeah, but we don't win them all, but he was extremely competitive. And the reason why he didn't win them all because he was in a position to win more, because but he wasn't before that. Nickname was Faldo. He just didn't get it over the line in 82, 83, 84, and then, obviously went through the rebuild back end of 84. It took him 3 years to have another win, but, he was secure in Europe, secure on the PGA Tour, 87. Well, we know what happened there, and that's sometimes, when we make swing changes, when players make swing changes, Tiger was no different. Made the swing change at the end of 97's majors. It was 99 before he's back in the winner's field. Dug one out, I think, if I remember rightly, in 98, won the first tournament of the year. And then it was 99 before we saw him, compete at the PGA, US PGA, and I think he'd won Byron Nelson or something beforehand. But he's back on the major run from there, and of course the rest is history. But a player generally is going to take a long time. So if you're trying to change a movement pattern with a swing and it's taking a couple of years, you can change a movement pattern with the putter a lot quicker because the movement, is relatively small. But ultimately, yes, you can get good results, but it's the feel under pressure that is under pressure. That's because the instincts that you've had as a kid, releasing the putter and now you're changing those movement patterns are going to be a challenge to ingrain under pressure. Can a player do it? Yes. But if they're only if they're missing putts is a reason to do so. If they're not holding putts or they've got the yips, you've got to do things that are going to fix the problem. And that's it ultimately.
Right. So then better to be consistent than correct or technically sound. Better to be consistent.
Yeah, if you want the golf ball to roll nicely, and let's say we work within a tolerance of half a degree, you'd want the face square, the path moving into out slightly by up to half a degree. Those would be reasonable tolerances. Those would be the technically correct. You want to hit the sweet spot. You've got to deliver the right amount of loft, etc., rise angles. But ultimately, if you're consistent at what you're doing, you can calibrate the consistency. If you're inconsistent, you end up with a bunch of numbers that float around 0, but they float because they're averaging out over a couple of dozen putts, and you go like, oh yeah, that looks really good. And you find the inconsistencies down in sort of below 50%. You can't calibrate that. You don't know whether you're going to miss right or left out in the golf course. So you're better off knowing your pattern. What's your movement pattern, what's your release pattern, what's your miss, because then you can factor that in under pressure.
Yeah, better to know yourself than to know what's right.
Yeah, but you've only got a 4.25 inch target, so you can't be a long way out either.
Yeah.
It's great if you've got a 40-yard wide fairway or 40-foot wide green, but you've got a 4-inch target once you get there. So there's not a lot of tolerance for it, and we know that really peculiar putting strokes have won tournaments. Billy Mayfair, great example.
Yes.
Of a putting stroke you just didn't want to look at, let alone, can figure out how he did it. But then, somebody had a tinker with it and he lost it.
Mm.
The things he did really well just disappeared. And players do that, but there's got to be a good reason to make the changes, until it's falling apart. And falling apart is that you're not holding the putts you need to hold. Walking off the green thinking, right, okay, well, I've let another one go. Right, why is that? Is it down to I just don't know how to read greens? Is it down to I can't start it where I've intended it? So if you can't start it where you intended it and you're a really good green reader, it doesn't make any difference if you can't start it where you intended to hit it. If you've got poor speed control, that's going to throw you a curveball at it as well. I mean, players can't read greens. With all the technologies we've got out there, tour players are still under reading.
Is that right? The
Yeah.
average is as an underread?
Underread and overhit, because you can get away with it.
Hmm. What do you mean you
If
can
you're
get away with it?
underreading 20% or so, and I would say that tour players probably somewhere between 10 and 30% underreading
Underread.
generally. Recreational golfers, 70 to 80% underread. That's a significant number. I get guys look at me and they go like, what, got a 2% slope on this putt. Okay, great. Drop the level down. Really good. Now where you're aiming it, right edge. What? It's 10 inches of break on that putt. How do you work 10 inches out? Just hit it there and see how much that ball's going to move.
Yeah.
Oh, I've missed that by 6 inches to the left of the hole. Yeah, of course you have, because you've underread by 10 inches. How do you see that much break in there? Which we could do a whole nother show for.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
But,
green
when
reading.
you start to look at the number, you start to look at the numbers. So a player looks at numbers, and even when they're getting there and they're starting to do, I'm not saying aim put wrong, but what I'm saying, seeing players and they've trying to then factor in the feels. So they may get some numbers, they get the right numbers, they get the right distance, they're going in there and they're lining their fingers up. And then they're going in, well, what's the feel? Have you got allocated feel for this putt? And then lies in a problem. You go downhill putt that might be 10 feet in length, but it plays like it's going to roll. The golf ball's 2% down. Let's say it's 2% down on a 10-speed green for a few numbers, which, there are variables to all of this, but let's just throw a few numbers. That ball's going to roll 17 feet if you just roll it for a 10-foot putt. So you put a 10-foot stroke on that on the flat, it's going to roll out about 17 feet. So to roll it 10 feet, because that's where the flag is, you might only need a 6-foot stroke length. But you've got to put a 17-foot break length on there. So now all of a sudden, this 10-foot putt might have 75% more break on it, because it's going to roll, and it's the longer that takes the ball to get to the hole, the more break it takes. It's running slower. So we think it's a fast putt, but the ball's actually traveling slower.
Yes, right.
So you could have 75% more break on there. You better factor that in, because otherwise now it's on a low breaking putt, and it will get 3 or 4 feet past you, even if the speed's decent, because it never got high enough. So you're not putting it up the slope, not using the slope to cushion the blow. So it could just be falling away from the start. But if you're 75% out. And look, you'll find tour players in that category as well with that kind of breaking putt. And we're not that far away from the Masters starting the season again, where we look at players with the turning their back to the hole, and you go like, where are they aiming?
Yeah.
And unless you've been on there and putting on speeds like that, you would never, ever know, what it's like to do it. So, most of us are not fortunate enough to actually experience. Well, there are courses out there, but we're not playing at Augusta to do it.
Right. Hey, golfers, I want to pop in real quick and tell you about Putter Cup. And this is right on theme with this episode, so I thought it was an awesome product to talk about. Putter Cup is a dead simple and truly effective set of putting training aids. And I think training aids is not even doing it justice. I think it's more of like a putting improvement system. So what do I mean by that? There are 3 different putter cups that tackle 3 distinctly different components of putting. One is for focus, one is for speed, and one is for flexibility. So the one for focus is called the center cup. It is an insert that you put into the hole, and it makes the size of the hole smaller. So what it does is it helps you narrow in your focus, and it makes the size of a regular cup feel bigger. So really simple, very effective. And then the one for speed is called the speed bump, and it helps with dialing in your holing speed. So it's an insert that you put in the hole, and it has this volcano shape. So you have to get the speed and the line just right, or it will get deflected off the side or jump straight over the hole if you've hit it too hard. So it helps you kind of have to hit a very, very good putt for it to go in. And then the one for flexibility is called the to-go cup. So in addition to it being my favorite of all of them, it's also my favorite name. I think the to-go cup is such a brilliant name. But what it does is it allows you to have a regulation-sized hole wherever you go. So in my studio here, I have a putting mat that has holes on only one side of the mat. So I that direction is only right to left. So I want to also have left to righters. So I will throw the to-go cup down on the other side of the mat. And now I have left to righters, and I've got a regulation size hole right there. And it also has this kind of volcano shape a little bit. So you still have to be spot on with speed and line for it to go in. So it's also a great training aid in that regard. So you can get 15% off of your putter cup by going to puttercupgolf.com/mentalgolfshow. Not the mental golf show, just mental golf show. And sign up for the Putter Cup newsletter. Again, that's puttercupgolf.com/mentalgolfshow. And when you get there, sign up for the Putter Cup newsletter and you will get 15% off of your order. And by using my link to get there, it will help support the show. So thank you to Matt and the Putter Cup team for supporting the Mental Golf Show. All right, let's get back into the episode. What are we supposed to be thinking as we're standing over a putt about to pull the trigger? What do the best players think when they're standing over a putt? What do you think when you're standing over a putt about to pull the trigger?
It's not shit, don't miss. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So, but players do get that way, you know. But one of the best players, which is the question that you've asked, what are they thinking when I stand over a putt? So I'm not going to say that I'm a best player, but I would categorize myself as a best putter. You know, I can roll my rock. You know, I can get it started on the line that's appropriate. I'm looking for speed, because the speed's what's going to determine where the aim is. Yes, I've factored all the aim in. What am I looking for? For me, critically, I want the hands to keep moving. If they keep moving, everything happens to be neutral at the club head end. So if I move the hand, keep the hands moving, the hands stop, that club head, the speed's always in the club head. You know, swinging the putter 3.3-ish mile an hour on a 10-foot putt tends to be great. If I'm moving, then the hands are going to be traveling half the distance, or should, if I've got a very high pivot point. If I've got a low pivot point, then my hands are doing that, club face is rotating like that.
Yes.
So I've got to keep the hands moving to keep the rotation optimal, but minimal. As in, it'll be opening in the backswing, square at impact, and trying to stay as square for as long as possible. I don't want that. I'm not Tiger. I can't manage that. So I'm going to keep that motion as neutral as I can. The only way I'm going to get to do that is to use the hands moving through the ball, which neutralizes the other bit 30 odd inches away from where I'm holding the club.
So you're thinking about hands. That's your
But I'm
primary
not
thought.
putting with the hands.
Right.
I just want to keep the hands moving. What keeps the hands moving is the motion through the shoulders. So for me, in practice, the emphasis in my backswing, I'm right-handed, so my right shoulder is going to move in rotation, which then the putter's only traveling a relatively short distance, so it will travel straight. And the straight part of it is the plane of the shaft. That's the bit that's traveling straight. The putter goes up in the air and it's tilted at 68, 70, 72 degrees, whatever that optimum shaft plane is. As the putter moves up, then it moves inward.
Yes.
Nothing else brings it in. We're not swinging around the body. And putters that have strong arcs, toe flow, whatever term the manufacturers put on them, don't swing any differently. There's a torsional aspect to it. So we'll, park that for the time being. But ultimately, that putter's not going around the body because I've got a strong arc. I'm swinging the putter in a straight line. I can use my Anza style blade with, 45 plus toe hang and still swing the putter in a straight line from side to side, because the shaft is what stays in plane.
Yeah, the grip and the shaft and the arms, the hands are going straight back, straight through, but the head.
The head lifts, and because it's projected at 20 degrees or so from the perpendicular, then that's going to lift the putter and bring the sweet spot inside.
Yes. Okay. So the thinking there, I know it's different than what should we be thinking over the putt, but maybe it's related, but a lot of people think I need to get this putter head to go straight back, straight through, and that is overly head focused. instead of
Yes. And
hands
complex,
or
because now you're also moving the putter against the forces of motion.
Because then you're moving probably the grip away from you. And
yeah. So now we're starting to pick the shoulders up to try and allow that. The hand, imagine now straight back and straight through, you put the putter up against the wall of your room, or up against the board that's, nice and flat. Now to keep it on the board, your hands have got to move away from your body. And that's just not conducive to human movement, because ultimately they would move behind you, not away out in front of you.
Yeah.
You can get away with that with a long swing because there's time to rectify the angle of attack into the back of the ball, the path direction into the back of the ball. You can't do that with the putter, which is why the principle of straight back and straight through is flawed, even if your eyes are over the top of it, because you've got a 20-degree tilt to the shaft. So it just doesn't work. It won't work naturally. It goes against the laws of physics. If you're trying to do it.
If you're kind of rotating around your lumbar, and there's the plane of the lumbar and the plane of the arms, hands, shaft, and those two are kind of perpendicular to each other, that if that system stays in sync, the putter kind of does what it needs to do.
Yeah, but because ultimately as it's tilted there, everything comes inside. So we know that once the club gets above the hands, the club head gets above the hands, the club head is now behind the hands, which means that with a putter, it starts about 10, 12 inches in front of the hands. With a driver, of course, it's 3 feet or so in front of the hands with a 45-degree tilt to the shaft angle. But as soon as it gets level with the hands on the backswing, and it gets above the hands, the club head starts to move behind the hands as he goes up. But we're not taking it round the body. Unless you're Sandy Lyle, some feet and Harnell Palmer, sort of the club whipped in behind them. But players now, the club's out in front of them because they're looking for width. And the putter should be moving in its natural width around, the motion of the body. So the chest is moving the hands to the right-handed golfer in the backswing. And then the chest movement on the way through will move the hands to the left of the golfer, backswing and forward swing.
So do you think your mind needs to be quiet over a putt, or there needs to be a swing thought, or I guess it's maybe not a swing, a stroke thought of some kind, but you're thinking quiet?
Quiet as much as possible. When we're going through changes, obviously the quiet has more noise. Where are the triggers? Right shoulder going back, left shoulder coming through. Is that too much? And with some players, that's too much. I remember having a conversation with Brett Rumford, 7 or 8 years ago now. And, he said, what's your thoughts for the movement? And he was using the broom handle putter at the time. And they were moving away. I think at the time they were just about to start to move away from the chest. And he said, what's your thoughts? And I said, well, the right shoulder takes it back and the left shoulder takes it through. I remember him looking at me going like, nah, too complicated. But his whole swing philosophy, short game especially, was all based on left shoulder. Whatever the left shoulder did, the left shoulder would do. And that's all he did. That's all so his thinking was based on the simplicity of why he was the genius with a wedge. And, he thought about it probably 3, 4, 5 seconds. It didn't take him long to figure it out. No, I could do that with my left shoulder. So his consciousness of what he was trying to do then just centered back to what he would normally do. And he liked that thinking process because he could simplify it. And I thought I'd simplified it with right shoulder and left shoulder.
Yeah, it's pretty simple sounding.
Yeah. So, if I'm doing a static motion drill, so in other words, get to end a backswing, now I've got to understand the trigger for the forward swing. That's left shoulder. Left shoulder moves up, pulls the arms, chest, and rotation follows on from there. But I've got to get it from a low point to a higher point, back to where it started, and then bring the putter back in motion with an upward strike. I don't want to go from where it is and then thump the right shoulder down on top of it, come over the top and hit down on the putt. So bringing the left shoulder up through the motion helps to bring the putter back up through the ball. So that's a conscious thought that I'm aware of, but not when I'm actually out there putting, unless, I'm pulling, and I'll go from time to time where I'll just feel like it's just closing down or the path's a little bit across the ball and I just want the emphasis to come into the left shoulder. I'm disciplined enough to know that I'm not going to leave the face open when I do that.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to, that may be my swing thought for, 2 or 3 holes, 3 or 4 putts maybe, and then I can just dismiss it. And I'm only ever focused on, can I hit it in straight line? Where I've aimed it, good. I'm hitting my start line. Can I hit it at the speed I want?
Yeah.
So stood over the ball, really, I would say the best putters are thinking speed, because they've already lined themselves up to where they want to hit it.
Yeah, that's decided. That box has been checked. No more thinking about that. No need to.
Yeah. And then, it's just about what speed, and speed's going to set the aim anyway. So,
Yeah,
going
that's
to
kind
roll
of been
in
decided
a little bit
too.
Yeah. Yeah. So at that point, what do we need to do? Setup's taking care of the ability to strike it out the sweet spot. Posture's allowing us to create the motion. So now we're getting into a place where we can just literally visualize the putt moving into the hole. And that might be a foot or 2 before, or might be the incomplete distance of the putt. Create a visual, however the player sees it.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of consolidating all of that, all of those kind of all these details that can go into making a putt. Once you get over the ball, to make it simple and clear, is there needs to, at some point, you need to transfer to a feeling. And there's players like Bryson who might not be thinking feel as much as this far back, this far through. It's still very mechanical, but for the most part, most players are, there needs to be a feeling, kind of a consolidated feeling that they're trying to tap into before they pull the trigger.
Absolutely. And, with Bryson, he's using measurements. He's going a specific distance back in order that he can release the putter coming through. And, he's already, we know how complex his mind is when it comes to it, but his calculus is his feel. So, it's complex for us because we're not doing it. But, if I want to make a full swing with a wedge, I don't think about it. It's up here somewhere, hands above the shoulders. But if I want to hit 3/4, I know that 3/4, my thumb and shoulder have to be in line with each other. If they are, both back and through, I get 3/4. My feel is, can I hit it there and there? Can I hit my marks? If I can hit my marks, that's my 75% swing that's going to give me 75% total distance. That's my numbers, that tells me that my position on the clock face, if you will, or the position relative to my shoulder is giving me the numbers. That's giving me my feel. So it's feel by numbers in effect.
Sure.
So this is how I would then illustrate to a player, if you want a 3/4 shot, try with the hands there first. Notice I said, try with your hands there first. What do the numbers give us?
Yes.
We don't have to go and paste them out like we used to. Quad or TrackMan will tell us, in a nanosecond.
Yeah.
Putting's just exactly the same, because we see the relationship to the hole. As that ball moves towards the hole, we know immediately where the feedback is always too quick.
Yeah, your 10-10 drill, where you get the pieces of tape and say, here's my 10 inches back, 10 inches through, and that is kind of decided already. Now, based on this green, where does that roll to? That's you're saying, do this, and then what do the numbers tell us? Instead of, how can you get it to roll 10 feet or whatever? Do this and then see how far it rolls, and there's your calibration. That's how you think of it?
Yeah. And 10-10 is incredible, because once we've matched the tempo to roll the golf ball a given distance, so if we don't know what 10-10 is, it's take the putter back, face away from the ball 10 inches, through the ball 10 inches. Grip lengths typically are 10 inches, so we can use that as a marker without carrying a tape measure with us.
Sure.
So it's roughly, you'll find most rubber grips are around that 10. Sort of the PU grips are sort of 10.5 to 11. So just kind of measure them out. But ultimately, you've got a marker that you can put down, a couple of T-pegs, let's say a bit of tape, T-pegs, whatever it is, that gives you that mark. Now, once you get used to swinging the putter, if you go to the greens committee and say, what's the green speed for this tournament, this competition, whatever, greens for the day, and they say it's 10.2, and you roll the golf ball and take 3 steps, and you need your next foot to grab another one, it's like, well, there you go, it's close enough to 10. And I'm not saying it needs to be exactly 10 or 10.2 or 10.4 or 9.3, whatever it is, it is. But then you've got to be consistent with that. So if you can then optimize your tempo and your speed for that, as long as it's nice and level, you'll be able to roll the golf ball out a given distance. And whatever that distance is, and it matches to the speed of the green, then you can start to calculate speed very simply using a formula that you've spent time practicing. It's not going to happen immediately. We're going to practice it. You're going to practice it so that the formula becomes instinctive as well. But any time somebody says to me, I can't get good distance, well, have you thought about the length of your backswing? No, I can't do that. Well, you can't do good distance with the formula that you're using. So what are you using as a formula? I don't know. I haven't thought about it. It's just feel. So let's try a couple of inches add-on and see how far the ball rolls out. And all of a sudden you find that, wow, I can actually hit it where I want it to go. And find the difference. We can see a couple of inch difference, enough. Yes. And we can see the difference as it rolls out. And then we can start to look at it and go, oh yeah, but what about if it's uphill or downhill? Let's focus on flat putts to start with. And then you can start to calibrate the differences. At least you've got a start point. And what I've found is folk will go, oh, it's not for me. And then they go, that's really good, then, isn't it? They come around to thinking, because now there's a formula. It's something that helps. Every other shot, every other shot we tend to hit, there's a full swing involved and we've got a maximum number. Then we try and fiddle it in there and take 5 yards off it. Well, 5 yards is 15 feet. It's a good shot when you just hit it full. We try to be fiddly around 5 or 6 yards, half a club. Just hit it the distance and don't worry about it, because it's only going to be 15 feet away anyway. Right. The chances are it's going to be
a little long, a little short. Yeah.
Yeah. It's 15 feet. Now, if you've got your calculations wrong or you don't know how far you hit clubs, then get that done first. It's typically between clubs, even if you go somewhere like, Bryson, there's 15 yards difference between each club. It's 7. It's 20 feet, not 15. I'd like to have more 15 footers than 20 footers, but ultimately, gives you an idea of, that's a full swing, that's got the elements out there that's going to affect the golf ball. So, if you've done all your calculations right and you throw the ball up in the air, 90 feet in the air, or 140 if you're Rory, there's going to be some variables that you've got to take into account, and some of them you can't see or feel.
Right, but getting that baseline, right.
The putting green, actually, we can be quite calculated, and work it out and be quite methodical in the way that we go about it. And then it becomes quick. Even if you have to write it down to make it quick, you can just go, okay, 12 feet. Okay, so 15 feet, 12 inches a stroke, 10 feet, 10 inches a stroke. I'll go with 11 then.
Yeah.
The only reason why I've had to calculate that, and it's took me 3 seconds to do it, is to explain it. I know that 12 feet, 10 speed green, and that's all I do, when I go and play, find the speed of the green.
Yeah. You calibrate before the round, every round?
Oh, every round. Yeah. And it takes me 3 to 6 putts. So it doesn't take 20 minutes. It only takes 20 minutes if I've gone from a 12 speed green in tournament in Thursday, and then I'm playing in a pro-am at a municipal course at running at 6.5 on Sunday. The 20 minutes is now to get my head around the visual and the feel of the length of stroke when I'm looking at a putt that's 10 feet and the ball, I've got to hit it like a 15-footer the other day. It's like bang, it's like, it's just not going to get there. So, otherwise you come up short, a foot short all day round, and get frustrated and come back in shooting 2 over par, and you've played really nicely. You haven't held anything. Spend 20 minutes calibrating with the change of speed. It's really easy to go from 6 to 12. It's in relative terms, it might take, instead of 5 minutes, it might take 10, but it's not going to take 20.
Yeah. To go from fast to slow is hard.
Yeah. But if you're going from, reasonable, medium to fast down to slow, you're going to have to take time, because you've got to get used to the visuals and how hard you have to hit it.
Yeah.
When it's quick, it is. And you feel heightened, and interestingly, feel always heightens when it's quick. It's why the best players and best putters love quick greens.
Yeah, they focus in. It kind of pulls their focus out of them. They kind of tunnel vision into, like, I really have to focus here.
Yeah, but they just play by feel, and it's that emphasis of, right, okay, I can feel this ball going into the hole. But all they're doing is feeling how hard they're going to hit it. They know it's going to roll because the greens are so pure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's kind of scary as recreational golfers, they speed the greens up for championship weekend, club championship and final medals and all those sort of events that you're going to play, and ultimately, it's sort of like, they're going to be really quick. Actually, they're going to roll really nicely. And
Yes.
part of the reason why they're quick is because they're rolling nice. They might not be
Yes.
rolling that good, for the other, 8, 9, 10 months of the year where the greens are decent, or 3 months if you're in the UK. But, you get nice greens to play on that weekend. Embrace it. Enjoy it.
Yeah. Don't let it
You
freak
can
you
be
out.
more creative. Because we
Yes.
want to put like a child, when we were kids, I don't know how old were you when you were playing, but, I started when I was 8, 9 years of age.
I
So,
was 12. Yep.
you know, be childlike when you're on the greens. How much brake can I actually put on this putt before it's too much brake?
Maximum. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So now you're playing by feel, you're playing by visualization and feel. And it's like, oh yeah, that works. And then, it's like, how hard can I hit it before it's too hard and it jumps out? And we don't do things like that when we're adults.
Yeah. We're trying to get
And it's a lot of fun.
optimized, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I think it's probably be in the 70s when Jack Nicklaus was asked, crikey, Jack, should we put a bet on you? And it's kind of like, why? He said, well, you haven't hold anything. He said, I'm not trying to hold anything. I'm not trying to hold anything. Well, what are you trying to do then? He said, I'm not, I'm thinking. Just on the putting green, thinking. What he was thinking about, I don't know, because that part of the story never came out. But
Yeah.
this, heckler in the crowd, what are you doing, Jack? Should we put any money on you? You haven't hold the
Yeah. You're
putt
not
yet,
making it. Yeah.
And, well, I'm not trying to make anything. What?
Right. Right.
You know,
Us as adults, we're trying to make that when we're trying to calibrate stuff in practice, everything needs to go in. A missed putt is bad, and so we're very perfectionistic and
yes.
optimized with our practice, and that's not always the best way to practice.
No, I mean, a couple of stories was, well, one certainly. I coached when I was national coach in Jamaica. I coached the guy,
Cool.
Heath. He was a psychologist, sports psychologist, and I think he'd got too much for him, so he decided to cut grass. It was a lot easier. Lost himself in the driving on a mower. Or it's great because I did it as well. Yeah, if golf sucks, sit on a mower. It's great. And then
Teach you about life.
yeah, exactly. So, and you turn around and you've made something straight and you go like, wow,
Yeah.
that looks good.
Yeah.
There's a reward in that,
That's great.
but ultimately, I asked him a question with, it was one of my top players. And, I said to him, I said, Keith, can I ask you about your putting? And he said, you can ask me anything you like about putting. I said, are you trying to make it? And he'd had, obviously, he must have had 30 balls on the green at the time. And there was about 3 in the hole and the other 27 somewhere randomly positioned around the hole. And I said, so you're trying to make it? And he's gone, no. What? Do you want me to make it? You're the one with the pressure, not me.
Ooh.
You're not trying to make it. There's no, why would I do that? You're not trying to make it. I couldn't get my head around it.
Yeah. Yeah. If not that, then what? Right?
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, well, are you expecting to miss it? I didn't say that. So he is one of the best golfers that lives on the island, and he's not trying to make a putt, but he's not expecting to miss it. Now this gets deep, but it gets quite profoundly simple as well. He has no expectation to miss it, but he's not trying to hold it. Right. So what words are we using in the last statement? Not trying to make it. Not is a negative word. The brain is a positive organism. Not is the preceding word, and trying to make it is the statement. So he is trying to make it. He's not putting himself under any pressure to do so.
Yeah.
By saying, I'm not trying to make this, he's trying to put a good roll on it. He
see.
can control the outcome. His control of outcome is, I can put a good roll on this. And I took that away with me thinking. I scratched my head for a while. In fact, I might have pulled the top off a beer if I can remember correctly. I needed something a little bit more profound to help me get over it.
Sure.
But it was like, oh my word, wow, that's incredible. And he said to me, he said, you won a big tournament a few weeks ago. He said, and you backed off a putt. And I said, yeah, I did. He said, I could see your knees were shaking through your long pants, before you even pulled the trigger and you backed away. What went through your head? I started laughing because I knew what it was that was the issue. I said, I hadn't 3-putted for 54 holes, and I would hold every single putt inside putter length at that point in time. And he said, let me tell you, don't miss one now. And I said, exactly. He said, so you walked away. He said, I could tell by the reaction of your arms and club was, get those thinking, sort of nuggets out of your head. Just put a good stroke on it and hold one more. That went in dead center.
Right. You turned it kind of in a pursuing, here's what I want to do. Yeah. Not
put a
what
good
I
stroke
want
on
to avoid. Yeah.
I put a good stroke on every other putt I'd had for 54 holes. So why not now in the playoff? So that was my outcome driven, conscious thoughts, something I could control, put a good stroke on it. If you put a good stroke on it and you miss, you still put a good stroke on it as a positive outcome in terms of you put a good stroke on it. There's a negative consequence to poor aim or, wrong speed or whatever. But you've still achieved the task at hand that you were in control of, which was make a good stroke, put a good stroke on it, execute well. If you chose the wrong line, it's not down to the execution of the stroke then. You're not thinking about why I missed it. You're thinking about the reason why you missed it was actually, why did I aim it there? So you change your consciousness. When I stood over putts 4 years earlier, not knowing which side I was going to miss it on, when the yips hit me, that was then the big deal. Like, I don't know which side I'm going to miss it on. My dad was caddying for me at the time. He said, well, choose one. Well, this is 50% of the errors gone, which was fine. But then he also said, which was the smart play, which of course I'm never going to listen to because I was still a young boy in slightly longer trousers. But ultimately, he said to me, why don't you just roll the ball up to the side of the hole or the front of the hole and tap it in? You're saving yourself a shot hole. 36 holes later, I'd have been 9 shots better off if I'd listened to my dad and won the tournament by 8, but I didn't.
Yeah. Wow.
So there's a lot of wisdom in the old man.
No kidding.
He's no longer with me, but I can still recall the conversations. The challenge over that was my first round where I understood that I had the yips.
Yeah.
Which ultimately really suppressed my ability to play competitively. And so I didn't pursue playing, but I had to beat the yips. And as many people as I went to try and fix the problem, big names, nobody helped me fix it. Posture was the critical part. Because beginners with poor posture, see, you don't get the yips because you miss putts. Folk go, oh, it's the consequence of missing putts. Beginners don't hold putts. They can't hit the ball from any distance into the hole. They've got no idea. So it's not the element of miss. It's the reason behind it, the magnitude of what you're placing on that putt.
Right.
The outcome that might happen, you might hit it 4 foot past the hole. But ultimately, you then start to fear the outcomes because the outcomes are what you start to observe. But beginner never gets the yips. So it doesn't start there. It starts from poor posture and reactions. Poor posture, miss left, miss left, miss left. Your brain says, how many more times, Andy, you're going to miss left? I'll open the face for you in the midst of the stroke. Now, there's other elements that have kicked in at that point, but, ultimately, let's just say it's a left, 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 and the brain says, hold on a minute, where are you aiming? So you aim more to the right. The more you aim to the right that's not relevant to the hole or the line, the more your brain says, need a reaction. It's aim further to the right off the tee, shut the face down because you're going to hook, and now you have to hook it.
Yes.
Because the more you aim to the right, the more the target's to the left.
Yeah.
So something's got to react. And
right. So the yips kind of start, maybe it's a combo of miss, like a consistent miss along with the strong emotional reaction of this was important and I'm consistently missing or consistently hitting bad putts. So this cocktail of importance plus missing all the time, your brain says, we got to change something, and it starts manipulating.
Yeah, because if there's a consistent miss left, and if you don't fix that, the brain will.
Yeah.
We talk
Right.
about the fact that yips are involuntary reactions. They're not. They're just not conscious reactions. You're not trying to do it consciously, but your brain is.
Yeah.
So you say an involuntary reaction, but the brain's very conscious of the outcome if you don't. So the brain gets involved. I mean, we could do a whole thing on yips. It's just, the bottom line is, if we don't fix the fault which started in poor posture and the brain scrambling, and, I've had guys come to me for 20, I had the yips for 20 years. I'm like, boy, you've got some stickability.
Mm.
How on earth have you stuck at it for 20 years? Because
Yeah.
I had mine on and off for 10,
Yeah. That's a
you know,
long time.
but, and it just, you don't know when they're going to hit you. I was 1 under par, having rolled the ball beautifully for 5 holes. On the 6th hole, I stood over a 4-foot putt, not knowing what side I was going to miss it on, and done well to 3 putt, because I rolled it 4 foot, but I missed the return, and the next one went down the holes and dropped in. I'm like, whoa, but
Yeah.
gone from 1 under, should be going to 2 under, now I'm back to level. Stand on the next tee, knock the flag out on the par 3 putted that one.
Mm.
And on that day, had 10 3-putts inside 10 feet. And you just, 33 greens in regulation, knock it round in 7 over, and you go like, have I done that? 10 3-putts will do that.
Mm. This goes right along with a concept that another guest on here kind of said, when things are going off the rails, when you're really struggling, return to fundamentals, return to what works, kind of return to a baseline. So when you say posture is the starting point to fixing your yips, that resonates perfectly, because you've gotten off and more and more and more off as you keep missing and as you keep yipping. So you need to just kind of say, let's start from scratch and let's check the boxes off of fundamentals. Let's get my posture right. Let's get my alignment right. And then see what the ball does. Okay, it's still missing, right? Okay, I need to address the next thing on the list, but I've already checked this box, so I know this is right. So you kind of like really whittle it down.
Yep. And I'll get asked about, my thoughts on claw grip and, I don't know, whatever they're called these days, because there seem to be iterations of everything. But, can you get your palm and your forearm parallel with the shaft? So Scotty's got his sort of iteration of whatever this grip is these days. He holds it nicely with the left hand. His right hand's below, but his forearm is parallel with the shaft. That means the movement wants to work in plane from side to side. So straight away, there's a balance element to that. Did it work for him? The stats tell us it definitely worked for him.
Very much
so. So does he need to change it? Well, he puts from 30 feet, he puts conventionally. So does he need to change it? Or can you trust that these short putts could work with the normal grip? But look,
he's fine.
If he doesn't need to think about it. And because of that, sometimes coach doesn't need to say anything.
Yeah.
So, right. Why does it work inside 15 feet with, his peculiar right hand position and not from 30? I'm sure Phil knows, will say, I'm sure Phil knows.
Yeah.
But does Scotty need to know? No, because it works. They haven't going to change anything because it's not broke.
Yeah.
It was broke before they fixed it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas other players are then trying to get into all sorts of peculiar positions with the elbow underneath and the wrist angle, wrist set behind the shaft. And, that's peculiar. That's not natural. And then they're trying to kind of manipulate it.
Right.
If they've taken the twitch out, then that's okay.
Yeah.
It's working.
Yeah.
Who am I to say that,
kind
Tommy
of a
Fleetwood's,
but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Tommy, if I'm looking at Tommy and I'm, I'm not criticizing. What I'm saying is I'm looking at Tommy thinking, I think there's a slightly peculiar way that he's doing it. It's working. So I'm not the guy to change that.
Sure.
I'm not criticizing the point. He's found a way to get the ball in the hole first. Bang, done. Right? If we understand the biomechanical approaches, why the body's designed to move in a certain way, and we optimize all of the, sort of characteristics of impact, by doing that, however they found a way to do it, go with it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get in there and say, oh, you've got to do it this way.
Right.
But if you want to know how to optimize it, and if you're looking for another 1% here and a 1% there, then you can find those by doing it this way. If you're dogmatic about the fact I'm not changing anything, you stay where you are. Your status quo is don't get throwing your toys out of the pram if you miss a few putts you feel you should hold. What are you doing? You've got to control the controllables. And if you're looking for fractions of percentages, I mean, Randall Chambly put a post out in 2005 and 2025 stats.
Yes, I saw that.
I mean, players are getting worse in every section.
Yeah.
Why is that? The greens
Lower
are
make
better.
rate. Yeah.
So we've got greens are better, balls are better, putters are better. Like now, where do we go?
Knowledge of putting,
green
science.
reading.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So all of those other factors have improved. So what's not changed? The golfer. It's the only thing that could possibly change is the golfer. Why? Is it tempo? Because ultimately tempo, these are one of the metrics that we can measure on, putt lab. It's the one variable that is changing out, and from my perception, in the wrong way. It's getting slower and slower, in terms of time it takes to make the smoothness of the stroke. It takes away the instincts. So if you take longer in the backswing, 10, 15 years ago, we were taking that putter back at 0.6 of a second and making the putter back to the ball 300, 0.6, 0.3. 600 milliseconds, 300 milliseconds. We had a 2-to-1 ratio. Now it's going out 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, right? It's, like golf swings are, and it's not improving the stats. If that's a good reason to start to look at tempo and return it to 2-to-1, and then with the 2-to-1, you also get 10 inches back, 10 inches through. And I know I'm not the only putting coach that's saying that, because you can see that on any of Phil Kenyon's stuff.
Sure.
He says that you take the putter back the same as you wait and the same as you do through. Now, there has to be some acceleration to do that, because otherwise the impact the ball and the putter make deflects the energy on the putter. So
yes,
if you're not taking it 10 inches through,
yes,
it's going to come up shorter if your swing motion is without acceleration.
yes.
So it's a minor acceleration. So let's just say you work on 10% extra on the follow through, but the ball will absorb that.
Yep.
Slows the putter down, and away you go. So you get your 10-10 based on that. So you've got a nice acceleration, you've got your speed timings, and you're working towards a metric around 2-to-1. But if everybody's trying to work something take a little bit time, 650, 700, 0.7 of a second back, a little bit quicker on the way through, well, that changes tempo, and that tempo is not part of the human DNA. You're going against the natural flow of movement. And as a consequence of that, then your feel's gone. These are the best players in the world, remember. So if it's going to affect them, it's going to affect recreational golfer.
Okay.
How deep do we want to go? We could be here for hours, couldn't we?
Andy Gorman, this has been both detailed and over complex for my small brain, but also awesomely consolidated and simplified, and some really, really cool stuff. So I appreciate you. Where would you send people? What do you want people to know about you and what you're doing right now?
The simplest bit is you can contact me at golf@andygorman.com. I am available for that. You can WhatsApp me as well, and I'm sure you've got details of my WhatsApp number, but I'm in the UK. I respond. I'm more than happy to chat with folk. So if you want to WhatsApp me at +44 7966 235 706, you can get hold of me there. You can golf@andygorman.com. Andy, can you help? Then the answer is yes, I can help. And, we'll find a way for me to be able to do that for you. I coach online, so there is no corner of the earth that you can't be found, or I can't get hold of you and help you. So, those are the best mediums really to get hold of me, and I'll be more than happy to help you with it.
And you're putting out some good content on YouTube as well. So
Andy Gorman, ThePASS. Yeah, it's Yeah, and I'm just about to put out, not put out because we haven't recorded it yet, but I'm just about to go and put a bit of vitamin D onto the top of my head and record some sunshine shots. So we'll be doing it from a slightly different location, but
Okay.
yeah, that look forward to getting that done and getting that out there.
That's excellent, Andy. Thank you so much, man. This is a pleasure.
Josh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to this conversation with Andy Gorman. That was so awesome. It was both detailed and just like over complicated in the best way, but also simple and like great takeaways. I know that I'm going to immediately leave from this episode, and I'm probably going to go do it right now. I'm going to work on three things. I'm going to work on my posture. I'm going to make sure that that's right so that I've got, he said, shoulders over toes and arms hanging straight down, fingertips pointing at the tips of your toes. And then I'm going to make sure that my putter is the right length so that my arms can stay at that good athletic posture. And then I'm going to do the 10-10 drill. I don't know if I can do it in my indoor putting mat, but I want to get out to a putting green and practice the 10-10 putting drill to kind of get that calibration thing going and see, okay, is my tempo on this 10-10 drill consistent? Is the ball rolling consistently? So I'm super excited about working on these things. So as complicated as this could seem, there's actually really simple, awesome takeaways from this, both mentally and the physical technique of putting. So I loved this conversation, and I hope you did too. So I will have Andy's links and stuff in the show notes. To his email, his WhatsApp, his YouTube page, his website, all that stuff will be in the show notes of this episode. All right. And if you want a free mental game resource, go to joshnicholsgolf.com/assessment, where you can take the mental game assessment. It'll take you 10 or 15 minutes. And once you take it, you will get a handmade report sent back to you that will tell you your mental game strengths and your areas in most need of improvement. It's an awesome resource that I use with my one-on-one coaching clients every day, and it is free for you. So I think it's just a no-brainer, awesome resource. And to those that are still waiting on me to send yours back, be patient. I'm getting on it. There's been so many, hundreds and hundreds. I mean, across the entire life of the thing, there's been almost 4,000 people taking it. So there's probably a couple hundred that I'm still behind on. So we're working on a way to make it automated and even better and improved. But for now, it's still handmade and sent back to you by hand. So be patient with me. I promise it's worth the wait. All right, everyone, thank you so much for being a listener and viewer of the Mental Golf Show. I'm Josh Nichols. Get out there, putt freely, and I will catch you guys next time.